Welcome to GameWell, the podcast about a thriving future in games, from well-being and creativity to optimization and performance.
Welcome to another episode of this podcast. Today I have a very special computer engineer and a very dear and near friend of mine. He has a unique perspective on life. He has created a integrated living model which teaches the human beings about how to thrive in their lives. He is the most active, or one of the most active, Wim Hof teachers in the world. He likes to take people underwater in freezing cold and breathe very heavily and make them high on their own supply. And he has just a very unique perspective on life, and I think he can share a lot of value. Welcome to the podcast, Donato. And
David, thank you.
It's time to have you on. So I'm happy we made this work.
No, thank you, Kevinuski. Good to have you, brother. Good to be here with you. Good to share with your audience, and good to spend some time together, actually doing some work together. You know, we have our usual, monthly check-ins as friends, but rarely we get to do some work together. So I'm very excited about this and to share some stuff with your audience.
That's great. And I kind of want to mention some other things that I didn't get to say because there was so many things in there, right? You've also been part of a very special meditation pod that you created.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
tell us more about that,
we
maybe to start.
well, I've been as you said, I'm a computer engineer, and I'm still very active in my work. I was involved well, I'm part of a tech startup called OpenSeed, which is a meditation pod and a meditation technology platform to create immersive environments for guided meditation. So this meditation pod, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of furniture and technology that you bring into your office, and it's a permanent fixture inside of your office, and it creates a meditation room inside of your office space, and it gives people that are in this office space the opportunity to step inside and maybe participate in a quick meditation or a longer meditation journey. And we also have implemented not just guided meditation through sound, but also through aromatherapy. And we also added some sound healing sessions, some breathwork sessions. But more than anything is for me, my passion nowadays for technology is that how can we use technology to help people not be in front of a screen and maybe go and get away from taking content from the screen and maybe looking at the more interesting content that is always being created inside of yourself. So that was my initial intention for participating in OpenSeed, and we've been doing pretty well. We've done a few rounds of funding now. We have picked up as one of our investors Deepak Chopra, which for the ones that don't know that, he's kind of like the Steve Jobs of the meditation world, put it that way. You know, he is that big. So what Steve Jobs is for tech, Deepak Chopra is for meditation. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say. And with a huge writing obsession, I would say as well.
Yeah, exactly. So
massive amounts of books.
Yeah, so he's very influential in the meditation world. So for us to have picked him up as an investor has been if that doesn't make the company work, then nothing will, so that's really good. And we've been going through some of the growing pains of every tech company, especially a hardware based tech company, not so much of a software. I mean, we do have a software backend and a software platform, but it writes on a hardware platform, and it runs on a furniture platform, right? So it's a very complex. It's hard to raise capital for hardware based tech companies, as some of you guys have heard. I'm sure this has been a conversation in your podcast. Um, but more than anything, where I think are really great synergy for what you always talk about, it's the wellness and the productivity and the health of the people involved in the development of tech, and in specific in your audience, which is gaming, which I mean, gaming is just software that has a very specific purpose, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's what we've been doing with that. I'm more of at this point I'm more of playing an advisory role in that company. I was very actively and hands-on. I mean, I ran all the wires. I wired all the, I was there soldering the original boards, and designing the original hardware, and then having the communications with the software engineers to create the full stack that runs our solution, and also communicates with our back end, because the idea is that this is cool to talk to your people. For us as a company, we do have a dashboard that the company has that has access to really interesting metrics of usage and length of usage, recurring usage, which meditations get used the most, which ones get the better results. So we do have some metrics. We do have a few in, and we have access to the metrics of each one of our meditation pods. We have a few in some research facilities. We have a few in some educational centers. We have a few in hospitals that is not so much for hospital clients to use, but for hospital staff to use. We have a few in finance offices. We have a few in co-working spaces. Those were our first test sites, and we started pre-COVID, so when co-working spaces were a thing. And so really cool. We actually, one of the co-working spaces that we were here in Miami was one called CIC, which was kind of like the tech co-working space in Miami.
Oh, wow.
So it was really cool. So, and now as you may know, Miami has become one of the tech hubs here in the U.S. More than anything for financing of tech, not so much for development of tech.
Yeah.
So really really cool. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey with OpenSeed, and we're still pretty active with it. So as I said, now I'm more of an advisory role. Like, how do we move the tech forward? How do we implement new designs and more solutions based? We have a pretty interesting team now that is really really good. So I don't have to show up every time to fix the wires anymore. So that's good.
I think there's a very interesting link between the immersiveness of the creation that you've done with Pod and what games are trying to do. And I think there's a unique perspective because you have integrated so many senses in to the product itself, with the sound and the visual encapsulation of the pod, and I think there's some lights as well, right?
Absolutely,
Your
yeah.
factory system, the guidance. I think there's a really interesting parallel there with the immersiveness that you created, and I guess that could almost be a value created for studios that can have something like this to have an off time in the breaks to immerse themselves in this kind of experience. I just wanted to highlight that. That was pretty interesting.
I think that there's a beautiful connection, a possibility there, because while I do understand that creating the most immersive environment for gaming, it will create, and the gaming environment is has evolved. I'm a kid that grew up in the 80s playing old school games in the arcades, right? And when you think about the old school games in the arcades, they had something that the new style of gaming doesn't have so much, which is going to the arcades created an environment and a community that was connected by the game, but outside of the gaming space, right? So the gaming space was this arcade room where you would go, you would meet up with your friends, and you would play, and you would meet new friends, or you would meet new people around the passion that you share for gaming and for playing, and you would exchange tricks and techniques and tips and things, and it was a much more in-person thing. Once we started gaming on the internet, we started kind of creating this gaming room, but we're still not there physically, right? Now with esports, it's starting to come back, where we're starting to have teams spending time together and things like that. And then, even amateur esport teams are starting to get created, and that environment is starting to get, built again, right? So I think that there's a bit of a comeback to that, but where I think that to me, what games, I think that the link between games and community is being solved again. But the reason why I was bringing that up is because there's something that happened in the arcade that is not happening in the esports or in the at-home gaming experience. But at some point in the arcade, you and all your friends ran out of money. So before you were fatigued of playing, there was a budget that you had. And I remember it was always, for me, it was always, okay, I had 1 peso. 1 peso was $1, right? And because I grew up in Argentina playing in the arcades, and $1 would get you 4 coins. So you could play 4 games. That's it. You couldn't exhaust yourself in 4 games. There's something that's happening now in the gaming world where people are just playing as much as I can until they burn out. Where I think there is, and of course for the game developers, and if you want to develop a successful game, you probably want to develop a game that people can play for a very extended period of time, right? I'm wondering now, talking about the link between the meditation pod and the immersive experience that now gaming is and studios are trying to create. And you see it where you have a more comfortable chair, a more comfortable keyboard, a more comfortable mouse, a better headset, a better thing. Eventually, long term, you're going to have your own gaming capsule where you go in and you can probably poop in that chair and not have to get up. You know what I mean? So that you can keep playing, right? So I think that there is a possibility here to prevent gamer burnout by introducing maybe some breaks. And in the breaks, the studio can have some guided meditations, some stretches, some stuff, It could be really interesting because it would make sure that you don't lose your mind, which eventually you do if all you do is gaming, because our brain is not designed for just gaming, right? So could the gaming studios be brave to introduce a gaming break? They don't have to. I mean, ultimately, the gamer can choose to participate in it or not, right? But could we start early on introducing it before? Because long term, what's going to happen, right? Long term, what's going to end up happening? What I see for the immersiveness and for the effect that gaming is going to have on people's wellness is that eventually this is going to become a problem. This is going to become a noticeable problem. Eventually, people are going to start complaining enough about it where regulation is going to start happening, right? And then gaming studios are going to be forced to introduce some sort of a break or a device or a thing that shuts off the game or that forces the guy to take a break, right? The gamer to take a break. So do you see that going long term?
I'm not really seeing the I hear you, and I hear that it's happening, especially in Asia, with just over gaming with no breaks, no food, no nothing. Especially with the
Mhm.
culture in Japan with the shut-ins. I hear you. I'm not certain that regulation is going to occur just as well as regulation of Netflix and other streaming services is going to occur. Because I do believe that most countries will probably um, place the responsibilities on the gamer and not on the studios or in that structure. I don't think they're going to limit the financial potential that they can gain through the studios, etc. But I hear you, and I see another possibility here where the the constriction of time, the limitation could be a built-in feature that makes the game more difficult because you have to complete a certain thing within a time limit before you have to take a break. So you're increasing the challenge of how you can play throughout the game, and also making it scarce in a way so it's more difficult to play through. So I could see like some sort of creative inspiration there, where you're not really forcing something positive on them, but you're saying, well, this is a feature of the game and difficulty, and hence it potentially has a benefit for the gamer. They can still go and play something else if they want, but still there's like a cost. It creates friction around playing better.
Well, there you go. And just I think that if there's a gaming studio uh, that at least is brave to start playing with the idea.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? If you start playing with the idea, what you do is you start the conversation, and
Hmm.
it won't go unnoticed. If you release a game that has a wellness component built into it,
Hmm.
there's no way we're not going to talk about it. What
And
would
it is
happen if then?
happening.
It is happening. Okay.
That is happening. It's they're more like wellness specific games. I know of a company here in Denmark, which the name escapes me, but I talked to them briefly at the Nordic Game last year in May.
Right.
They're creating these things now, and it is a trend to use the medium of games in different directions of learning and more healthcare specific and well-being, and so they're
Yeah.
applying this logic
Right.
to it. Definitely.
I'm talking about the next version of Fortnite having something in it.
Yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Not create a new thing that rides on a gaming platform that is not a game. that is not a that is not a game of that people like to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like I feel like those have always been around. I
for
mean,
sure.
those have always been around, the non-gaming content in the game platform,
Yeah.
right? So I'm talking about that. It's like how do we, so what we did with the pod was how do we bring wellness into the office space,
Mm.
right? So I guess the question, the parallel here is like how do we bring wellness into the gaming space while people are still gaming? You know what I mean? Not because to me creating a game that is a wellness game, it's kind of like asking a
It's
person
limited.
in the it's like asking a person in the office to not to stay in the office but do something that's not work. You know what I mean? Like it's a so it's I don't know if the parallel is right, but I think that there's definitely an interesting parallel there,
Hmm.
and it's either we start doing that or at some point, to me, um, the if we didn't create wellness initiatives in the workspace, um, it will be inevitable that you will be considered an employer that doesn't care about their employees' wellness.
Hmm.
That is already happening. You know what I mean? There's a lot of wellness incentives in workspaces that are the differentiator of where an employee wants to work or not, right? So the work culture, the wellness culture, the flexibility, there's certain things. My girlfriend has a company called Corporate Fitness and Wellness, Corp FW, and what she does is she takes she takes an empty conference room, which a lot of office buildings now have because people don't have conferences as much as they used to. And she builds a gym and she puts a personal trainer in that gym. Not just build the gym, because then if you build a gym, nobody uses it. You put a personal trainer there and everyone in the office could book time with a personal trainer and go and get a personal training session while they're at work. And then they take a shower or they clean up and then they go back to work. The employers that do that, their employee retention goes through the roof, right? The employee retention of the companies that have the open seat pod is going through the roof. So for me, it's eventually if you are I hear what you said, that the regulation is probably going to put it on gamer and not on the studios, or like the same thing with Netflix, right? Look, they never regulated TV. Why would they ever regulate Netflix? You know what I mean? Or why would they ever regulate YouTube? Forget it. I mean, these companies are way too powerful. They're never going to get regulated, right? And the gaming companies and their gaming studios are also powerful, successful companies. So they're probably also they're international companies. So they're going to be even harder to regulate, right? So you're going to put it on the gamer. You're going to put it on a kid that has been addicted to gaming since he was 5 years old, for them to make a decision as if they weren't. It's kind of like, I'm going to take a kid who's been addicted to crack since he was 5 years old, and when he's 18 years old, I'm going to put it on him to be responsible for if he wants to continue smoking crack or not. Like, that's naive and that's irresponsible. So in how long before gaming studios are going to start being seen as an evil corporation? You know what I mean? Because of the undeniable effect that they have on people's health and people's wellness, right? And to me, and this is an interesting conversation for me as a computer engineer, I've had opportunities to work and to work as an engineer for companies that I do not agree with their product, right? Not that I don't think their product isn't cool. Not that I don't think that. Look, I was offered to work for Lockheed Martin to design simulators for missiles. Is the project an interesting engineering project for me to work on? Yeah. But I don't know if I agree with the way that we're using missiles lately. So I'm not gonna put my brain for hire for that. Sure, it's not going to make a difference because another one of my classmates will probably take on the project and fuck it. But I'm going to go to sleep. I'm not going to go to sleep thinking that I made a better, that the missile that just hit whatever was simulated by my thing. So for me, it's when I get involved in tech nowadays, as a wellness instructor, as a wellness coach, as a life coach of a lot of CTOs, of a lot of programmers, of a lot of fellow engineers, for me, I am a bit of a wellness engineer. So I struggle ethically to get involved in certain projects, but I would be very, very inclined to work for a game. Like, I would not work for gaming now because I know what gaming is doing. And we can dance around it, or we can just look at the giant problem. That's that we're messing with kids' brains. Where else is it okay? What other industry is okay and well perceived when we are ruining people's kids? We're ruining kids' lives. How is that all right? Right? So for me, I cannot overlook that as a wellness instructor. So for me, as a person who appreciates wellness myself, right? So for me, is if I was to work in the wellness world, if I was to have a contribution to the wellness world, it's like, okay, which one's going to be the first studio that really takes wellness of the gamer seriously, right? instead of just the revenue that you can mine off of the addiction that you create, or let's not call it addiction, but of how fun your game is to play, right? Because ultimately that's what it's about. It's about creating a game that is fun to play, that brings joy to the gamer, right? I'm sure that that's the original intention. When you create a game, or if you're like, man, when I grow up, I want to be a game designer, it's because you think that you can create a fun experience for someone, right? And look, games may be the only fun time that a kid could have, right? Maybe their life is not fun at all. Maybe their parents are not together. Maybe their family is struggling. Maybe maybe they're very introverted and they struggle to make friends. So gaming is a way for them to make friends and to have those social interactions. So I don't want to say that gaming is evil, because it's not. It's got beautiful things. And I grew up gaming. I grew up a computer nerd. That games made me into the engineer that I am today, right? And there was a time where I considered seriously becoming a game designer. Seriously. I think I have 2 games that I designed back in the day. And so I was a big fan of graphic adventures, like puzzle solving, go here, talk to this person, get information, go over there, solve the puzzle. A lot of the old Lucas Arts games, Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Maniac Mansion, Loom, all of those. And then Sierra was a company that had all those games too. They had a bunch of others, but for me, it was mainly the Lucas Arts games that I really, really enjoyed. And I was starting to create a few of those, and that was super fun. And then I started seeing that gaming became something else, and then I discovered going out on dates with girls, and it put a big hurt to my gaming time.
Yep. Time gets consumed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we're ranting, but what a fun talk, huh?
I just want to try to summarize some of the things and maybe highlight what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing there is a potential, and this could either be the studios themselves or a third party company to come in to create some sort of safety nets or mechanisms for games to have in place. And one part of this with the kids is for parents to have the family regulation software system where they put them into place in order for them to think. That's how they're trying to do it now. But what would be more powerful would be if it would be integrated into the actual games through the studios, or for a third party to come in to offer an overlay of code that then gets put onto these games where they don't have to make it themselves, where it's automatically put into place. I'm not sure if that's possible or not, but it doesn't matter. I also want to highlight that games are highly beneficial for the psyche and for a lot of things playing them. The problem is the excessiveness and the immersiveness in design that then bypasses some of our biological mechanisms that have the potential to get us addicted, and to overstimulate some of the things that we have in our brains, because they are highly simulated experiences. They're highly immersive in that. So that's what I was hearing. I think there's something there, as you said, we need to kind of regulate it. And I just wanted to summarize that. And ideally, I would actually like to move on more to the integrated living model, because we haven't really touched upon that yet. And I want to be respectful of the listeners' time and your time. And I think that could bring a lot of value, and it also shifts attention to what can people working in games do for themselves. Because we've had a lot of very thought-provoking conversation about it. I'm sure it's maybe set some things in motion in their brains, or just stop them to think about it culturally and morally. But let's support them in a way now where what can they gain from that, and what do you see CTOs, CEOs, and other executives struggle the most with in this field?
Well, the biggest issue that I see consuming these executives' wellness is that they don't know how to have fun. Right? Which is really interesting. They don't know how to have fun. And why does that matter? They also don't know how to relax or rest. Why does that matter? They also, a lot of them do nowadays, but they may be confused about what proper nutrition is. Why does that matter? Right? They also are not very present, right? They're also not very present, meaning that they're sometimes so consumed by their work or consumed by what they're doing and their mission and their business, that they lose the capacity to be present. They lose mental presence. And why does that matter, right? They also spend a lot of time indoors, right? I mean, running a company requires you to be sitting on your desk in meetings or sometimes traveling a lot, right? So you're rarely in harmony with the environment. You're either never in an environment for too long, or you're inside of an environment for too long, but you really spend time outside. Right? I mean, look at me. I'm taking a podcast. I could do it on my desk, but I'd rather do it here, right? It's a lot more harmonious for conversation than my desk, you know. So why do all of those things matter, right? And what about they don't move, right? They're always sitting. They're always sitting, or they're always from talk to talk, from meeting to meeting, or from email to email, but they don't really move. And I'm not saying move just like move around the office. I'm saying work out, train. But why do we need to work out and train? Because we lost our need to move naturally. And we joke about this because you and I like climbing trees and doing weird stuff. We always talk about it that if people lived a natural life, working out gyms wouldn't exist, right? Because you would have to naturally climb a tree because there'll be a wolf coming to eat you, right? So you would need to be good at climbing trees. You have to be fast. You have to be strong. You have to do all those things. But because there's no wolves coming to eat us, but there are a lot of meetings that we have to go to, we get really good at just moving. And now a lot of us are working from home, so we even lost the opportunity to walk to work now, right? So why do all these concepts matter is because they are the base of the integrative living model. And in the integrative living model is something that I've developed through the the last 20 years of me coaching people to try to come up with the structure of happiness. Not so much the structure of wellness, because the other thing that I notice is that people who are happy tend to be well, right? Now, there's a lot of people that claim to be happy, but they're really delusional because they're just really, they may be very entertained with what they're doing, but happiness is a little bit deeper than that, right? It's very hard for you to be happy if you're sick. It's really hard for you to be happy if you are truly happy. Happy and healthy and strong is what I'm talking about, right? Which is what Wim Hof talks about, is happy, healthy, and strong. But for me, happy is not just you're smiling or you're having fun, right? Are you fulfilled? Do you wake up ready to live life? For me, happiness is, do you have meaningful connections in your life? Do you have a happy and healthy relationship with yourself? That's what I'm talking about. So in that, happiness sounds a lot more like wellness, but for me, they go together. And in the integrative living model, the intention is to take the parts of a person that have been neglected, the parts of the person that have been left behind, or the multiple personalities that we tend to develop in the effort of surviving our life choices, right? So for example, oh, when I'm with my friends, I'm like this. When I'm at work, I behave like this. When I'm with my parents, I become this other guy. So it's kind of like you become all these different people and you start disintegrating yourself, right? Or maybe it's not about the multiple characters that we develop, but maybe the paradigm that we create of the mind, the body, and the spirit, right? So maybe if you're a game designer, your mind is very stimulated, but you spend a lot of time sitting down, so your body is decaying, right? And then your spirit, maybe you're lucky, you're working on a game that you're passionate about, but maybe you're working on, I don't know, the next knockoff version of Candy Crush, and you're like, this fucking sucks, and you are now not motivated. I don't know. I just said. Hopefully, maybe the guy who invented Candy Crush is listening to me. What are you talking about, man? My name is great. My game is awesome. But what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That maybe you're not into what you do, or maybe you're not into what you do anymore. Maybe you're just you like the paycheck and you like the mental stimulation, but you know that long term that's not what you want for you. So it's chipping at your soul, right? I'm not a big believer of the mind, the body, and the spirit as three independent entities. So because I noticed that in the wellness world, that's what everyone's trying to balance, right? The mind, the body, and the spirit. But to me, animals don't have a mind, a body, and a spirit, and they're fucking fine, right? So for me, the mind, the body, and the spirit is just another place, like the multiple personalities that we create. We create these multiple dimensions of us that one of them is not real, right? Like if you're like this at home and like this with your friends and like this with your girlfriend and like this with your parents, which one are you really, right? So if we start creating these divisions of ourselves, the mind, the body, and the spirit, which one are you really? And if you look at a game designer, they're mainly their mind, right? And I'm generalizing, right? Because it's not true. But the ones that come for help, because they're struggling, it's usually because they leaned too heavy on their mental skills and they've left behind their personal development, their physical connection, their relationships. So that's why. But instead of trying to discuss which one of those personalities are, or how are we going to balance the mind, the body, and the spirit, which are three concepts that nobody really understands anyways, right? How are we going to balance these three things if we don't even understand what they are fully? So instead, I decided to look at what do we spend time doing? Because I saw, okay, animals don't struggle with these things. And what I realized is I started spending time observing the behavior of animals. I know that you're big into this too, right? And then what I've noticed is like, wait a second, why don't we observe the behavior of the human as an animal and compare the behavior of a human as an animal to a happy dog, right? And you're like, okay, the human as an animal is not spending enough time resting and relaxing. You look at my dog, this thing is always chilling until you see it hunting, and then it's a murder machine, right? Right? Trust me, nothing walks into this yard because my wolf tries to murder everything. But the rest of the time, she's just there. She's just, right now, check her out. She's just resting and relaxing. Look at her, right? Yay, she was chilling. So there she is, in her full chill mode. But then she moves, then she watches things, right? So she's resting and relaxing, but then she is moving. Then she has proper nutrition, right? Not only the food that we give her, we cook her food. We don't give her, she would be very different if she was eating like food from Walmart from a bag, But now she eats the same food we eat, right? She probably eats cleaner than we do. Then, she gets her movement, she gets her proper nutrition. You can see her also but proper nutrition is not just what you eat, right? It's also everything that goes inside, right? The stimulation that you receive, right? For a lot of people that join my coaching programs, one of the things that I make them do is stop listening to podcasts, stop reading books, and stop watching YouTube, stop watching documentaries, right? And they're like, what do you mean, man? Books are great. Documentaries are... Nobody watches TV anymore, if you ask them, but they're always They're always watching YouTube and documentaries. I'm like, that's still TV, man. But for me, it's like all the content that we consume is too much information. And I always ask them, who consumed more content in their life, us or George Washington? And of course, we have consumed more content than George Washington, but have we achieved George Washington great achievements? No. So what is holding us back from getting what we want out of life? Is it a lack of information? No. Or is it what you said? Is it an issue with our simulative powers of our brain that now, because I'm watching on YouTube a guy building a cabin, now I think I'm building a cabin, and you know what I'm not doing? Building a cabin. Like, how many videos do you need to watch of building a cabin before you just build your own cabin? You know what I mean? So super addictive. And the books, how many self-development books do we need to read before we start waking up early and doing push-ups? You know what I mean? So the proper nutrition is not just the food that you eat. It's also what else goes in. Proper nutrition is also the friends that you have, right? You are a great friend. There's never a conversation that we have that is not enriching or at least fun, right? But we never get together to just like, hey, do you want to hang out and do some cocaine? Never. You know what I mean? So we've cleaned ourselves up from those people that are not providing us with proper company, which is also proper nutrition, right? So when we talk about proper nutrition, is not just eating healthy, is consuming anything that goes in or anything that affects you, right? Then harmony with environment. Do we ever go? And it's not just about going outside, right? It's not about going outside. Going outside is the basics of harmony with environment, because the natural environment of the human is outside, right? But also, to be fair, the natural environment of the human is the cave. We are supposed to be inside too, because we're not a very tough animal, so we can't just sleep outside like a wolf does. You know what I mean? Because we're not great fighters, we're not very hard to eat, right? So we're not like a turtle, that's really hard to eat. It can sleep outside. So we do have a natural inclination to want to be inside, to want to be in a cave, because we feel protected. But now there's got to be a harmony in the environments that we inhabit. So there's got to be a balance between how much time we spend inside and how much time we spend outside. And when we are inside, is our cave really giving us the protection is our cave, our inside environment, also harmonious for us to be happy and for us to be healthy? So if you're in a dark room all day, with artificial light, and there's dirty laundry all over, right? And there's photos of your ex-girlfriend that broke your heart, right? And you haven't showered in 3 days. Man, that thing is not cool. That's not a good environment. It's also not harmonious, right? But if your room is well lit, it is organized, it is clean, it has very little stimulation, but it has images. The images that it has are images that are inspiring. Then that's different. That is you can be in harmony with environment indoors too, right? Like your work area is very harmonious. Look, you have a little plant, you have plenty light, you don't have a bunch of writing on the wall or pictures of naked ladies or something that's going to distract you from working. You know what I mean? So your environment is harmonious too, even though it's inside, right? You live up there. It's cold outside. You're not going to be hanging out outside all day, right? But you still go outside. So it's harmony with environment is not about just go in nature. It's also about, is the environment that you spend a lot of time in harmonious to what you want to create? And if you want to be happy, if you want to be creative, if you want to be productive, you need to take care of that too, right? Not just going outside. Also, your indoors environment needs to be harmonious, right? And then Movement, we talked about moving, moving, working out, taking care of your body, using it in a natural way, not just sitting all day. So, yeah, stretching, strengthening, and it doesn't take that much, man. It really does not take that much. How it doesn't take that much to gain a bunch of weight. Like
Mm.
if I just started eating one piece of cake every day, in a year I'll be fat, right? If you started doing 25 push-ups a day, in a year you'll be strong. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't take that much, so it doesn't take tremendous movement. It takes a little bit of movement, but every day a little bit of movement, right? But movement is not just working out. Movement is also making decisions and moving your life in a direction, right? So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. Yeah, on Monday, I'm going to start to the gym. That doesn't do anything. It's when it's Monday and you got up and you went to the gym. Or, you know what? I'm going to have that conversation with my boss because I've been working too much and I need a break. And I think if I don't rest or if I don't relax, then I'm going to start underperforming or I'm going to start suffering. So thinking about the conversation you're going to have with the boss, that's not movement. Having the conversation with your boss, that is movement. See, so sometimes a lot of the problems that we have are because we don't move, right? So yeah, you're getting weak and you're starting to get out of shape because you don't move your body. But you're also starting to struggle and you're starting to lose your mind because you don't have conversations that you need to have. See, all of that is movement too, right? Or maybe you're like, man, I really want to have a partner. I really want to have someone that I want to share my life with. And you don't move in that direction at all. You don't make any efforts to become, something that one of the questions they asked me is like, what do the CFOs and what do these executives struggle with? They struggle with being dateable. They struggle with being a person that someone would want to date, right? Because their life has no space for it, more than anything, right? A lot of these guys say, I want to have a family. Oh, really? Tell me about I want to have 3 kids. Oh, right, great. It's like, dude, you're back-to-back meetings. You work 90 hours a week. How are you going to have 3 kids? You don't even have time for a girlfriend, right? So moving in the direction of creating the life that you want to have is very important, right? Instead of being stuck. And then mental presence, right? The mental presence being having your thoughts which trigger your emotions, right? Having your mental activity be rooted in the present moment, in the reality that you live in, right? And the opposite of being mentally present would be to live in a story, right? To live in a story. And a story is a narrative that your brain creates to prevent you from moving, because moving it could require a lot of energy, it could require a lot of risk, and it could require learning a lot of new things and modifying your lifestyle. And your brain is programmed to seek familiarity and comfort, not the unknown and the adventurous, right? So maybe something that could steal your mental presence would be a story like, I'm doing this because I'm paying my dues at the studio and I got to do this, right? And you're just doing something that you just don't want to do, right? And you're suffering because of it. But the story that you tell yourself is like, oh, I'm paying my dues. It's going to pay off later. See, that's all in the future, and that's all a narrative that is keeping you from, man, I'm struggling right now. And instead of, I'm going to go talk to my boss and I'm going to ask him for support, instead of doing that, you tell yourself the story, I'm paying my dues and I got to suck it up and it'll be rewarded later. Then that story keeps you from addressing and moving in the present moment. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it does. I want to try I want to try to summarize it.
Summarize it. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Because we're ending the end of the time that we have.
Perfect.
Podcast. So I'm hearing you say the first thing you do is to cut out all the outside voices and stimulations of people coming in order for them to tune in who they are and to reduce the amount of information they're getting so they're not overwhelmed. They're actually starting to perceive themselves and their needs and what they really want, not just go on autopilot and yeah, pursue it
Yes.
even more.
Mm-hmm.
Then you talk about creating the right conditions for who you discovered that you are to be fed by these different influences. And this could be relationships, food, how you take care of your body, the way that you live, and how much you spend outside, and try to create a harmony for you to thrive in the personality that you are and who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also need to develop awareness around the stories and the patterns and the things that are keeping you from it, from being that person that you're attempting to be in order for you to be happy. And this kind of builds a harmony around persons.
Yes. What that does is it gives you the opportunity to endeavor, to live life in a different way, and then to get feedback. And what that feedback gives you, you're like, oh man, this, I started doing this thing and now I feel way better. What that tells you is that that's where your happiness can be found.
Hmm.
And that's who you are. Maybe
Hmm.
something that you try, you're like, man, this is great. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go and try it. I endeavor in the same thing that you told me. And I'm like, man, I hate it. Right.
Hmm.
And that's what makes you different from me. That
Hmm.
there's certain things that you connect with, and there's other things that I connect with, and they're fine. They don't have to be the same. We can continue to be friends and continue to get along. But we all have our own things that we respond positively to, and some things that we don't enjoy, right? Like sometimes some people like sushi, some people like pizza, whatever. That makes you a little bit different from each other, and it informs you about who you are, and then it allows you to live more honestly with
Hmm.
who you are,
Hmm.
right? Instead of trying to pretend to be someone that you're not, because pretending to be someone that you're not, it's not working. We all know that, right? It's what gets us into trouble, and it's what gets us into suffering, and it's what gets us into disease. Instead, we learn to be the best versions of ourselves, but you're not going to find that in a book. You're not going to find that in a podcast. You're going to find that in endeavoring and feedback, in spending time doing the effort, doing the work, and seeing what comes out of that, right? That's like me trying to create the next best video game by just watching how to write video game YouTube videos, but never actually iterating, iterating and testing this game out and versions and improving upon it. This is what we're trying to do with our life. If you don't like your life, you got to stop living it the way that you live it, right? It's like you can't keep playing it without rewriting the code. You know what I mean? It's
Gotcha.
like if there's a bug, you can't. No matter how many times you play, the bug is still there, right? We got to rewrite. We got to change the way that we're doing things so that we can improve the experience, so that we can move it forward. And the integrative living model, what I love about it is that it gives people a very clear indication of oh, maybe I'm missing rest and relaxation. Oh, maybe I'm missing proper nutrition. Oh, maybe I'm not having enough fun in my life. Because that's another important field of human endeavor. Just having fun, doing things just for fun. And doing things that are not your job, right?
Hmm.
So for a gamer, I was like, what do you do? What's your hobby? Gaming. No, you're a gamer. That's like if I'm a mechanic, what's your hobby? Mechanics. No, that's your job. Find yourself something else to do, so that you give yourself a break from what you already do all the time and you develop a passion outside of one thing only. So I hope that this is a nice little intro of maybe or maybe we said something today that you're like, ooh, that thing, right? So I guess that the biggest takeaway for people here could be like, I don't have to figure it all out today. Maybe I could just spend a little bit more time resting and see what that does. Oh, maybe I'm just consuming too much content and that's clouding my mind. So maybe I just cut that off. Oh, you know what? You're right. When was the last time that I climbed a tree? Because we talked
Hmm.
about climbing a tree. And they're like,
Hmm.
I haven't climbed a tree in a long time. And it makes you go climb a tree. right? Or maybe you heard about, oh man, yeah, I don't hang out with a bunch of guys that do cocaine, but I do hang out with a bunch of guys who every time I hang out with them, they kind of bring me down. You know what I mean? They're just kind of boring, or they just, so I'm just not going to hang out with them anymore. So just wellness is not that hard to do. It's just start somewhere, do something. What you do need to do is to change what you're doing. Just know that your health and your wellness is at it's within your reach, right? You can really change that quick, but you got to stop living the way that you live. Not completely, maybe, just something about it has to change, and endeavor in that. Spend some time, have some faith in it, have some trust that it may create some results, and see what you get. If what you get you like, use it as fuel to make more changes, right? And if what you get you don't like, you're like, woo, okay, that didn't work. But at least get nerdy with the experimentation, and then maybe you go and try something else out.
All right. I love that you just gave some practical things to do, because I wanted to ask you for that anyway.
There you go.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And where can people find you? What can they get from you if they want to?
Oh, well, I am on the internet.
Good place.
Yeah, a good place to put myself in. I like sending people to my website, donatohelbling.com. I do have Instagram, but I don't check it and I don't post on it very often. So my website is the best place to see what I'm doing next. I am building a wellness resort in the mountains here in the U.S. in North Carolina. So that's going to be coming up a lot in my news. They can join my newsletter. I send an email 3 times a year, maybe. And they can just, if they like anything that they heard and they want to participate in one of my integrative living sprints, which are my courses, or if they're in the U.S. visiting Miami and they want to come visit me at the Miami Ice Club where I teach, they can do that. Or if they want to reach out and say, hey man, I heard the podcast with Kevin and that thing you said was cool. Or maybe they are like, I heard your thing and I think you're an asshole. Great, send me the thing too. It's all good. But I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work with companies and corporations and teams, helping them bring this culture of well-being into the work that they do, and using it to improve the creativity and using it to improve the productivity and the employee retention. So a lot of that work, I do it. I get requests through my website from corporations to go support a lot. So it's just go to my website, donatohelbling.com, which I'm sure you'll share. And you just go to the contact page and just send me whatever you're thinking about. And that I check daily. My email, I do check it daily, and I respond it fast. So that's really, really the best way to get through me. A little old school, but it keeps me from, it keeps me available to people who I can make an impact in their life. So thank you very much, Kevin. I really enjoyed our talk today.
Me too. Thank you for being on. And for you listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in again, and I hope to see you in the next episode.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Gamewell, the podcast to a thriving future in games. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.